A Relic Reborn. In the heart of the bustling Zilithian Galactic Museum, a towering metal behemoth stood silent and still, drawing the curious gazes of alien visitors. The U.S. Relentless, a decommissioned human warship, had been donated to the museum as a gesture of goodwill between Earth and the Zilithian Empire. However, the Zilithian curators couldn't help but snicker at the primitive vessel, a relic from a bygone era of human space exploration. Zilithian curator Zaxerven led a group of wide-eyed younglings through the exhibit, his condescending tone echoing off the relentless battered hull. Behold, the once mighty human warship, now nothing more than an outdated piece of junk. See how primitive their technology was, how crude their designs. It's a wonder they even made it to the stars with such relics. The younglings giggled, poking and prodding at the ship's scared exterior. None of them noticed the tall, broad-shouldered human in a faded uniform standing nearby, his jaw clenched tight as he listened to the curator's mocking words. Captain Elias Riker had served aboard the Relentless for over a decade, fighting in the brutal Terran-Zilithian War that had brought both civilizations to the brink of destruction. He knew every inch of the ship, from the humming reactor core to the scorch marks on the bridge from the final desperate battle. To hear his beloved vessel reduced to a punchline in some alien museum filled him with a quiet rage. Suddenly, the museum's alarms blared to life, echoing through the cavernous exhibit hall. The curator's eyes widened in panic as a holoscreen flickered on, revealing a scared and menacing Zilithian in battle armor. The notorious warlord Khazardrik. "Attention, museum guests," Khazar sneered, his fangs glinting in the harsh light. "You are now my hostages. Unless the Earth Federation surrenders unconditionally within the hour, I will start executing prisoners. And don't think your primitive human guards can stop me. My elite warriors have already seized control of this pathetic museum." As if on cue, a dozen heavily armed Zilithian extremists stormed into the exhibit hall, leveling plasma rifles at the terrified crowd. The curator trembled, dropping to his knees before the warlord's men. But Elias Riker stood tall, his eyes fixed on the Relentless. He knew the ship's systems better than anyone. If he could just get on board, he might be able to reactivate the weapons, the shields, the AI that made the Relentless such a formidable foe. It was a long shot, but what choice did he have? He wasn't about to let some Zilithian maniac slaughter innocent civilians. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. The Relentless wasn't just some relic gathering dust in a museum. She was a symbol of Earth's indomitable spirit, the unbreakable will of humanity. And today, she would roar to life once more, ready to defend the innocent and strike fear into the hearts of their enemies. With a final glance at the curator and the petrified younglings, Elias slipped away, moving silently towards the Relentless battered airlock. It was time to show these aliens what a relic could do. Against all odds, Elias's heart pounded in his ears as he sprinted through the Relentless darkened corridors, the echoes of his footsteps mingling with the distant screams and weapons fire from the museum exhibits. The emergency lights flickered weakly, casting eerie shadows across the once familiar bulkheads. He skidded to a halt before the bridge blast doors, his fingers flying over the access panel. To his surprise, the doors hissed open at his command. The Relentless recognized her captain, even after all these years. Elias stumbled onto the bridge, a wave of nostalgia washing over him as he took in the sight of the command chair, the helm controls, the tactical displays. But there was no time for reminiscing. He had a ship to reactivate and a madman to stop. He slid into the command chair, his hands moving on instinct to power up the dormant systems. The bridge consoles flickered to life, status readouts and warning lights casting a ghostly glow over Elias's features. U.S. Relentless, online, a gentle female voice announced, echoing through the bridge. "Welcome back, Captain Riker. It has been some time." Elias couldn't help but smile at the sound of the ship's AI, her voice as warm and comforting as he remembered. "Hello, Adara. I wish our reunion was under better circumstances. We have hostages to save and not a lot of time. What's our status? Adira's holographic avatar shimmered into view, her translucent features furrowed in concentration. Main power at 20%, shields offline, weapon systems in standby mode. The Zilithian technology integrated during the ship's decommissioning is causing compatibility issues, limiting my access to certain systems. Elias grimaced, running a hand through his graying hair. He knew reactivating the Relentless after decades of inactivity would be a challenge, but he didn't expect to be fighting the ship's own systems. Suddenly, the bridge doors hissed open, and Elias spun around to find himself face to face with Curator Zaxxer Ven. The Zilithian's eyes wide with shock and anger. "What do you think you're doing, human?" Zaxxer hissed, his claws flexing menacingly. "This ship is Zilithian property now, a museum piece. You have no right to be here." Elias stood his ground, meeting the curator's gaze with a steely determination. "This ship is the only chance we have of stopping Khazar and saving those hostages. You can either help me or get out of my way. But I'm not abandoning those innocent people to die." Zaxxer hesitated, his eyes darting from Elias to the view screen, where the images of Khazar's men brutalizing the hostages played out in horrifying detail. With a heavy sigh, the curator's shoulders slumped in defeat. "Very well, human. I may not like it, but I can't just stand by while that madman slaughters innocent lives. What do you need from me?" Elias allowed himself a small smile, gesturing for the curator to join him at the engineering console. "You know the museum's systems better than anyone. Help me interface the Relentless with the museum's power grid and security network. If we can just get a bit more power and eyes on the enemy, we might stand a chance." As the unlikely allies worked frantically to bring the Relentless back to life, the ship shuddered under the impact of plasma fire. Khazar's men had noticed the power surge and were determined to stop them. But as the first volley of return fire erupted from the Relentless' newly reactivated defense turrets, Elias felt a surge of hope. The old warhorse still had some fight left in her, and with a little ingenuity and a lot of determination, they might just pull off the impossible. It was humanity and Zilithian, working side by side against a common foe. In that moment, the Relentless wasn't just a ship. She was a symbol of unity, of the unbreakable spirit that had allowed both civilizations to survive and thrive amongst the stars. And as the battle raged around them, Elias knew one thing for certain. The Relentless would not go down without a fight. The Warlord's Gambit. As the Relentless shuddered under the onslaught of enemy fire, Captain Elias Riker and Curator Zaxxer Ven worked frantically to bring the ship's systems back online. The bridge buzzed with activity, holographic displays flickering to life as Adira, the ship's AI, rerouted power, and calibrated long-dormant systems. Suddenly, a proximity alert blared through the bridge, and Elias's eyes widened as he saw the readout on the view screen. "Adira, what have we got?" The AI's avatar shimmered, her features etched with concern. "Sensors have detected an unidentified vessel docked in the museum's sublevel hangar. Its configuration matches known Zilithian extremist craft. It's likely Khazar's escape route." Elias felt a surge of determination. If they could just disable or capture that ship, they might be able to cut off Khazar's only means of escape and force a surrender. An idea began to form in his mind, a risky gambit that could either turn the tide or doom them all. He turned to Zaxxer, the Zilithian curator, and spoke urgently. "Zaxxer, what do you know about the museum's structural integrity? Could the Relentless tractor beam penetrate the walls and lock onto Khazar's ship?" The curator hesitated, his eyes darting between the readouts and Elias's face. "In theory, yes. The museum's walls were never designed to withstand the kind of force a tractor beam can exert. But Captain, the Relentless is ancient. Her tractor beam was outdated even before she was decommissioned. The chances of it penetrating Khazar's modern shield technology are astronomically low." Elias smiled grimly, his fingers flying over the helm controls as he brought the Relentless about to face the museum's lower levels. Never tell me the odds, Zaxxor. Adira, divert all available power to the tractor beam. Let's show these extremists what a relic can do. The Relentless groaned, the deck plates shuddering beneath their feet as the ship strained to power up the tractor beam emitter. Elias watched the view screen with bated breath, hoping against hope that the ancient technology would be enough. With a flicker of blue light, the tractor beam lanced out from the Relentless hull, piercing the museum's walls like a needle through cloth. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, incredibly, Khazar's ship shuddered and began to move, caught in the unbreakable grip of the Relentless beam. Zaxxor let out a whoop of disbelief, his eyes wide with shock and awe. I can't believe it. The beam actually worked. Captain, you did it. But their triumph was short-lived. The bridge doors exploded inward, a squad of Khazar's heavily armed extremists pouring into the room with weapons drawn. At their head was Khazar himself, his cybernetic eye glinting with malice as he leveled his plasma rifle at Elias's chest. You humans never learn, Khazar sneered, his finger tightening on the trigger. Khazar's ship may be trapped, but he still has the hostages. Drop the tractor beam and surrender the Relentless, or their blood will be on your hands. Elias exchanged a glance with Zaxxor, the curator's face a mask of fear and indecision. They both knew that if they surrendered now, Khazar would slaughter the hostages anyway, and seize the Relentless for his own twisted ends. There was only one choice. Elias closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and made the call. Adira, target all weapons on the hangar bay doors. Fire on my command. The AI's avatar flickered, her voice thick with concern. But Captain, if I destroy the hangar bay doors, the museum's structural integrity will be compromised. The hostages could be caught in the collapse. I know, Adira, but if we don't stop Khazar here and now, millions more will suffer at his hands. This is the only way. Elias turned to face Khazar, his eyes hard with resolve. This ends now, Khazar. The Relentless doesn't bow to tyrants and murderers. If we go down, we're taking you with us. As Khazar roared with rage and opened fire, Elias gave the order that would change the course of history. Fire. Revelations and sacrifices. A thunderous explosion rocked the Relentless as her powerful weapons unleashed their fury on the museum's hangar bay doors. The ancient metal buckled and twisted, giving way under the onslaught of the ship's advanced weaponry. In a matter of moments, the doors were reduced to a smoldering ruin, revealing the cavernous hangar bay beyond. But even as the smoke cleared, a new horror emerged. Khazar's men, their faces twisted with rage and desperation, dragged the hostages out onto the hangar floor, using them as living shields against the Relentless guns. Elias felt his blood run cold as he saw the terrified faces of the men, women, and children, their cries for help echoing across the comm channels. Khazar's voice crackled over the speakers, dripping with malice. You see, Captain, your pathetic attempt at heroism has only sealed the fate of these innocent lives. Surrender now, or I will paint the walls with their blood. Elias clenched his fists, his mind racing as he tried to find a way out of this impossible situation. But before he could respond, Zaxxor spoke up, his voice trembling but determined. Captain, the Relentless transporter system. Could we use it to beam the hostages to safety? Elias hesitated, glancing at Adira's holographic avatar. The eye's face was etched with uncertainty. The transporter hasn't been used in decades, Captain. There's no guarantee it will work. And even if it does, we have to lower the shields to use it. We'd be vulnerable to Khazar's attack. But Zaxxor pressed on, his eyes pleading. Please, Captain, we have to try. I can't just stand by and watch as my people are slaughtered, not when there's a chance we could save them. Elias took a deep breath, then nodded. It was a desperate gambit, but it was the only chance they had. Adira, divert all available power to the transporter system. Zaxxor, you're with me. We're going down there to buy Adira some time. The curator's eyes widened in surprise, but he nodded grimly, snatching up a fallen extremist's plasma rifle as he followed Elias off the bridge. As they materialized in the hangar bay, chaos erupted around them. Kezar's men opened fire, their plasma bolts sizzling through the air as Elias and Zaxxor dove for cover. The hostages screamed and cowered, caught in the crossfire between the two determined forces. Elias returned fire, his aim true as he cut down two of Kezar's men with well-placed shots. But then he heard a cry of pain, and his heart stopped as he saw Zaxxor crumple to the ground, a sizzling hole in his chest. Kezar loomed over the fallen curator, his cybernetic eye glinting with cruel amusement. Foolish Zilithian, siding with these pitiful humans. You could have been part of something greater, but instead, you chose to die with them. But as Kezar raised his rifle to finish Zaxxor off, the curator surprised them all. With a burst of strength, he lunged forward, tackling Kezar to the ground and grappling for the warlord's weapon. "Go, Captain," Zaxxor yelled, even as Kezar's fists rained down on him. "Get the hostages out of here. I'll hold him off as long as I can." Elias hesitated for a split second, torn between saving Zaxxor and rescuing the hostages. But he knew what he had to do. With a final nod of respect to the brave curator, he sprinted towards the huddled group of civilians, his voice ringing out over the chaos. "Everyone, stay close to me. We're getting you out of here." As the hostages clustered around him, Elias tapped his comm badge, his voice urgent. "Adira, now. Energize." A shimmering blue light enveloped them, and the world dissolved into a swirl of color and sound. When it cleared, they found themselves back on the bridge of the Relentless, the hostages safe and sound. But even as they celebrated their narrow escape, Elias's heart was heavy with the knowledge of Zaxxor's sacrifice. The curator had given his life to buy them the time they needed, and Elias silently vowed that his sacrifice would not be in vain. They had saved the hostages, but the battle was far from over. Kezar was still out there, and Elias knew that the warlord would not rest until the Relentless, and all she stood for, was destroyed. But as he looked around at the faces of the survivors, human and Zilithian alike, Elias felt a surge of determination. They had come this far against impossible odds, and they would not falter now. Turning the tide, Elias stood on the bridge of the Relentless, his heart heavy with the weight of Zaxxor's sacrifice. The Zilithian curator had given his life to buy them the time they needed to save the hostages, and Elias was determined not to let that sacrifice be in vain. But even as they celebrated their narrow escape, a new problem presented itself. Adira's holographic avatar flickered into view, her face etched with concern. "Captain, I'm detecting a massive energy surge from a hangar bay. It appears that Kezar's cybernetic enhancements are more extensive than we realized. He's drawing power directly from his ship's reactor core." Elias's eyes widened in alarm. If Kezar was able to harness that much power, he could easily overwhelm the Relentless defenses and retake the ship. They had to act fast. "Adira, what about the EMP cannon? Could we use it to disable Kezar's cybernetics?" The AI hesitated, running calculations in her head. "It's possible, Captain, but the EMP blast would also knock out the museum's life support systems. The hostages would be at risk." Elias closed his eyes, the weight of the decision pressing down on him like a physical force. He knew that using the EMP cannon was a gamble, but if they didn't stop Kezar now, the warlord would slaughter them all and use the Relentless to wreak havoc across the galaxy. He turned to the hostages, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his heart. "I know you're all scared and confused, but I need you to trust me. We're going to use the Relentless EMP cannon to stop Kezar, but it's going to knock out the museum's life support. I need you all to stick together and follow my instructions carefully. Can you do that?" The hostages nodded, their faces pale but determined. Elias felt a surge of pride in their bravery, even in the face of such overwhelming odds. He turned back to Adira, his jaw set with resolve. "Do it, Adira. Fire the EMP cannon." The AI nodded, and the ship shuddered as the powerful weapon began to charge. Elias watched the view screen with bated breath, his heart pounding in his chest as he waited for the signal that would determine all their fates. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light erupted from the relentless hull, washing over the museum in a wave of crackling energy. The ship's systems flickered and died, plunging the bridge into darkness as the EMP blast knocked out every electronic device in its path. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, a cheer went up from the hostages as they realized that they were still alive. Elias let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding, his shoulders sagging with relief. But their triumph was short-lived. The museum's emergency lights flickered on, revealing a scene of utter devastation. The walls were crumbling, the exhibits shattered and broken. And in the center of it all stood Khazar, his cybernetic enhancements sparking and sputtering, but still very much alive. The warlord fixed Elias with a murderous glare, his voice a raspy snarl. "You think you've won, human. You've only delayed the inevitable. I will tear this ship apart piece by piece, and I will make you watch as I slaughter every last one of these pathetic creatures." Elias's heart sank, but he refused to give in to despair. He turned to the hostages, his voice urgent. "We need to get out of here now. Follow me." He led them through the crumbling museum, dodging falling debris and shattered glass as they raced towards the exit. Behind them, Khazar's enraged roars echoed through the halls, spurring them on with a desperate urgency. As they neared the exit, a massive chunk of the ceiling gave way, plummeting towards them with terrifying speed. Elias reacted on instinct, shoving the hostages out of the way and throwing himself beneath the falling debris. The last thing he saw before the world went black was the hostages, their faces etched with horror as they watched him disappear beneath the rubble. Legacy of the Relentless. Zaxxer led the survivors out of the crumbling ruins of the museum, his heart heavy with the knowledge of Captain Elias Riker's sacrifice. The human had given his life to save them all, and Zaxxer knew that he would never forget the bravery and selflessness he had witnessed on this fateful day. As they emerged into the bright sunlight, a cheer went up from the crowd of onlookers and rescue workers who had gathered outside. Ships from both the Earth Federation and the Zilithian Empire hovered overhead, their crews working together to secure the area and provide aid to the injured. Zaxxer couldn't help but feel a sense of pride at the sight. For so long, the two races had been locked in a bitter conflict, their differences seeming insurmountable. But today, they had put aside their differences and worked together to stop a common threat. It gave him hope for a brighter future. Suddenly, a commotion erupted from the crowd, and Zaxxer turned to see a battered and bloodied figure emerging from the rubble. It was Captain Elias Riker, his uniform torn and his face streaked with dirt and blood, but very much alive. The crowd erupted in cheers as Elias limped forward, supported by two Zilithian medics. Zaxxer rushed to his side, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Captain Riker, how is this possible? We thought you were dead." Elias managed a weak grin, his voice raspy with pain. "It takes more than a little falling debris to keep me down, Zaxxer. Besides, I had a promise to keep." He gestured towards the Relentless, her battered hull still smoking from the battle. "She's more than just a ship, Zaxxer. She's a symbol of everything we stand for: courage, determination, and the unbreakable spirit of those who refuse to give in to tyranny and oppression. As long as she still flies, there's hope for us all." Zaxxer nodded, his eyes stinging with tears. He knew that the captain was right. The Relentless had started this journey as a relic, a forgotten piece of history gathering dust in a museum. But now, she would be remembered as the ship that had brought two races together and saved countless lives. As the rescue teams worked to secure the area and tend to the wounded, Elias and Zaxxer watched as Khazar was led away in chains, his once proud figure broken and defeated. The warlord had been found trapped beneath the rubble, his cybernetic enhancements shorted out by the EMP blast. He would face justice for his crimes, and the galaxy would be a safer place because of it. In the days and weeks that followed, the story of the Relentless and her brave crew spread like wildfire across the galaxy. The Earth Federation and the Zilithian Empire began to take tentative steps towards reconciliation, their leaders meeting to discuss ways to move beyond their troubled past and build a better future together. And at the center of it all was the Relentless, her battered hull repaired and her systems upgraded with the latest Zilithian technology. She had become a symbol of unity and hope, a reminder that when the chips were down, there was no force in the universe more powerful than the indomitable spirit of those who refused to give up. As Elias stood on the bridge of his beloved ship once more, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and gratitude for all that they had accomplished. The Relentless had started this journey as a forgotten relic, a piece of ancient history gathering dust in a museum. But now, she would be remembered as the ship that had saved the galaxy, not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through the courage and determination of her crew. They had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious, proving once and for all that the human spirit was a force to be reckoned with. And as the Relentless set out on her next mission, her crew united in their resolve to protect the innocent and defend the principles they held dear. Elias knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together as a family. For they were the crew of the Relentless, and they would never back down, never give up, and never stop fighting for what was right. They were the guardians of the galaxy, and their legacy would endure for generations to come.